Okay. Good afternoon,
This call is now being recorded.
Okay.
This call is now being transcribed.
Good afternoon, ladies. Welcome to the second to the last session of the WiLG inaugural Women's Mentorship Program. It's really been an exciting journey, and I'm really excited for this session and tomorrow's session as well. For both sessions, today we're going to focus on policy analysis writing, how to write a policy brief. At the beginning of the mentorship program, we were able to have an introduction to policy, public policy. And now we're going down into how we can analyze policy and how we can write policy briefs. Is really, really important to not only understand what public policy is, but also to lend our voices through writing or through analyzing policies, because in that it will give us an avenue, a platform to contribute to the discourse, to be able to submit submissions to policymakers, give our recommendations as young women, when we see something going wrong, be able to speak up, and just basically how to write a brief and how to be able to submit it. So it's really going to be practical. And today's session is going to be taken by Bushrah. We've all met Bushrah already. Bushrah is a powerhouse. Happy belated birthday. She celebrated her birthday this month. So on behalf of WiLG and all the mentees, we say happy birthday to you. I wish you many more years. Bushrah is a public policy expert. She's passionate about empowering young people, and today we're going to hear from her, and she's going to teach us everything we need to learn about how to write policy and understanding policy writing. So without further ado, I don't want to waste our time. I'm going to stop sharing so Bushrah can share her slides.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Please, I need you to confirm you can hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. So now I'll just give me a moment. I want to share my slides.
Okay.
Hold on, please.
Yes, fine.
Okay. Hold on. Okay, so so welcome everyone. Welcome to today's class. I don't think I don't know if the people here were at the last class, because this is going to be like a continuation. And if you were not, I believe you must have watched the video.
Yeah.
And probably that will give you an idea, yes, of what we discussed at the last class, because we might probably be referring to some things we did at the last class. And if you're not aware of that class, or you've not gone through the things we discussed, you probably might not find it easy to connect how it links to this, and so you're not lost in the process of the discussion. But nonetheless, I'll still do a brief recap at the beginning. Veronica, I'm trying to look for the... Sorry, is that what it says present now? There's an option that says present now. I want to believe that's screen they're sharing. It's not like Zoom.
Yes.
Okay.
Present.
Yeah. Select a tab to share. Open Chrome tab. Window. Okay. Can you see it now? Can you see it now? Please confirm you can see my screen.
Yes. It's presenting.
It's presenting. Okay, good.
Well, you have to go to present mode.
Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes, thank you.
How about now?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the class once again. My name is Bushrah, like she mentioned, and I was here, I think, last week or 2 weeks ago. I think there, but I'm not so sure. I can't remember when exactly. Introduction to public policy. It was an extensive class. We talked about policies, why we make policies, the need us as a people, the role of government, the role we need to also play as people, and how government functions generally in terms of their engagement around policy making, around decision making for the people. So today we're going to be looking at policy analysis and policy writing because, of course, once you develop policy, you don't just leave it at that. These policies usually need constant review. It will need constant evaluation to know at what point are some policies redundant. Because the fact that you have a policy now, in next 10 years, it might probably not be necessary, given your context or the peculiarity of the situation at that time. That policy might not fit the current situation of things. It might be redundant. You might probably need to completely scrap some policies. You might need to review it, maybe to adjust it. This is the reason why you have policy analysis and also policy writing. So today we're looking at how to write policy briefs and understanding the rudiments of analyzing policies. So, like I said, we'll do a brief recap on public policy. What mentioned talked about public policy as the instrument government use in making decision. It affects how decision is made. It includes legislations, includes rules and regulations on issues that affect the public, on issues that has to do with public goods, on addressing certain issues in the society, or you're trying to propose certain reforms or certain solutions in the society. Remember, we talked about the policy cycle. We talked about how then agenda setting, how you first of all set an agenda, talking about identifying the problem you want to solve or what's the issue at hand. And after then, you move into the policy. Of course, you do your research, the stakeholder analysis, and all. Then you get to the point where you do your policy formulation. Of course, before this point is where, like I said, you do your research, stakeholder engagement. You have your experts come in here and they actually make inputs based on their knowledge and to see how if those policy actually fits the situation, if there are better ways the policies can be formulated to meet the needs of the people or to address that current situation. Then you move on to the adoption of the policy. It depends. It could be government. It could be the three arms of government. It could be the executive. Now it could be at the legislative. At the legislative, what they do there is mostly legislation. So at the government level, mostly policies addressing things, but these policies cannot really stand because of enforcement, because of regulation. So you need certain laws to back it up. So while the executive are making some these policies, the legislations also have their parts to play in ensuring that legislations are made to back some of these policies or to make laws and make sure that those policies are actually implemented as should be, and also it's being enforced, it's being implemented, and people are actually working to ensure that those policies address the issue in the society. Imagine you have a situation where there's no law, there's no rule, people can do what they want. Of course, everybody thinks they can take laws into their hands. That's why these laws are there to keep everyone in check, rather, and to ensure that we maintain law and order, and to ensure that things or processes and procedures of doing things in society actually goes accordingly as they should. They have the implementation part. That's where you need to see that the reason for this policy is actually taking effect. So let's say Lagos State banned styrofoam, the use of styrofoam lately. Now, policy has been formulated, we've gotten to the adoption, we've accepted it and all. So now is the implementation stage where you go to parties, you're not seeing styrofoams anymore. You go to eateries, you go for takeout, and you see that they're still selling food in those styrofoams. Then there you can say the implementation is not going on appropriately. Then we come to the evaluation. Like I said, even if you have a policy, you need to always go back to review. How is it working? Is it even meeting the need for reason why we put it there? Then, of course, the maintenance. So next we go in properly into the topic for today, which is introduction to policy analysis. Brief, please. I beg your pardon. Excuse the error here. It's supposed to be introduction to policy analysis and policy briefs. So, what's policy analysis? Policy analysis entails a systemic review of policies and their effects. The aim is to ensure that we provide an evidence-based recommendation for decision makers to address some societal problems and achieve specific goals. I mentioned earlier that when you have a policy, you always have to review them to ensure that they meet the need for why these policies are being created. So when you analyze policies, that's why we have public policy experts, we have public administrators, there are people that specialize in this field, and their job is to review these policies and make recommendations to government to say this policy probably is good, or the policy is bad, or the policies are or just addressing certain area of the policy that needs to be changed. Then we look at policy brief. Policy brief is a document that now presents the findings from your analysis. So you see the flow. After you do your policy analysis, do you just leave it there? After you analyze, do you keep your results to yourself, or you expect that everybody should know that there's a problem or this is what you address? No. After you've done your analysis, then you need to present it officially in a structured manner to the concerned persons or to concerned organizations, to show your findings on the policy analysis you've done in an easy and accessible manner, in a format that is easily accessible. You don't use too many big grammars. Ensure that it's something that is easy to read. Anybody can access it. Not like you have so many jargons, big grammars there, or things that people cannot easily pick to understand. Then, of course, it's designed to inform and influence decision makers and general public and stakeholders. So I can decide today as a public policy expert to say, okay, there's a policy in government now. Let's talk about the NERA redesign policy. We had that time. I think we can all agree that that policy was not people friendly, wasn't even evidence driven, because if you had looked at the situation of people, then you know that that's not exactly what we needed at that point. That public policy that has to be public is supposed to meet the interest and need of the public, or take into consideration the realities or the challenges of the people and their welfare. But of course, that policy, for if you ask me, I would say is individual, is passive, is individual driven. It's more about it was hinged on personal interest of the people or the powers that be that wanted it to happen at that time. So for me now personally, I could say, okay, that policy now, I like to analyze it and look at what are the effects, what are the loopholes in the policy. So what is policy analysis? You use the use of reason, evidence to determine the best policies among a number of alternatives or policies already existing to address a particular policy problem. And this was proposed by Macri and WiLG, which were public policy experts. So like I mentioned earlier, look at use of evidence, you use your reason, you analyze certain situation, you look at you look based on your own expertise, you look at the situation of things, you look at the realities of that of such of that situation of a particular issue at hand that needs to be addressed. Then what are the evidence you have before you to determine whether these policies to get address the problem or a particular policy problem. And it can also be defined as a process through which you identify and evaluate maybe policies or programs that are intended, please pick this word, that are intended to lessen or resolve social, economic, and physical problems. And take me back to NERA redesign, what I was mentioning earlier. If you look at the NERA redesign, even you now, just begin to apply this policy analysis lens now. Basically, something, you're examining it, you're evaluating it. So use that lens now, based on this definition, to look at that policy. Did that policy in any way lessen the social, the economic, and physical challenge of the people at that time? Did it resolve anything? No, because rather there was scarcity of funds. People were scrambling to even get their money People couldn't have access to cash. Um, ATMs were not loaded with cash. Even you go into the bank and there's a limit to what you can get. Some don't even have the cash available at all because you said you were redesign. Even if you're going to redesign, there's also another way you would have done it in such a way that it does not put any burden on the people. So I will get to the point where we also need to understand the importance of having experts in this field. Experts in the field that know about this, and they can always contribute and tell this is usually we call it white paper at that level, when you're bringing in experts to contribute, to also help you review, to bring in bring and analyze the policy to know whether it's going to. So that takes us back again to policy. We talked about policy formulation process after agenda setting, moving to the policy formulation. That's the stage where they're even supposed to know or check to see whether these things or these factors are put into place and how would they affect the people. But even if you don't get it right, policy analysis for me, I think, presents you with another opportunity to go back to the drawing board and review what you have and see whether that policy meets the needs. But even looking at the Naira redesign policy as an example, even them, they seeing that these policies was definitely affecting the people, they still didn't take the cue to say, let's review this, let's take this back, because they're always allowed to take back a policy when you see that it's not well thought out. It's also, it entails a systemic approach to assessing exactly the outcomes, consequences, and effectiveness of government policies. So the idea is you want to know if those policies you have, what are the outcomes of these policies we've rolled out, what are the impacts on the people, how effective it is, and also you look at the implementation, the results they're getting from it, and it also just allows you to better serve the people in terms of improving the quality of public goods. And it is basically about policy performance and the evaluation. I think the key thing here is policy analysis is basically about policy performances. How are your policies faring? How are they affecting the people? What is the impact? What are the results they're getting? And also evaluating them to see how the impact is actually going, or how the people are feeling the impact, or how the stakeholders are feeling the impact. However, making a good decision or conducting a good analysis does not guarantee that the best solutions will be selected and implemented. So your own job is to just play your part. Your own job is to play your part. I beg your pardon, please. Sorry, I need to quickly take this call. Please excuse me. I'd like to quickly take this call. So
That's fine.
yeah, someone is here to see me. I think they're outside already. So let me just quickly, please. I'm trying to mute myself. I can't even.
Let me mute. I helped you mute. That's fine. So while Bushrah is trying to get her visitor into the house, it's very interesting what Bushrah said, and talking about policy analysis. I did the work on analyzing the Naira policy. So when she said it really came back to home, and I think I would share that. I did it a long time ago. I don't know why I haven't published it. But just going back, having to analyze the policy. So I mean, I know that Bushrah will do that, just taking the Naira policy and looking at it to say, was it good for the people? Was it the right time? It wasn't actually the right time, even if, okay, sorry, Bushrah is back. Bushrah, can you unmute from your end?
I can do that now.
All right, cool.
Okay, yeah. Veronica, I think I heard you mention something about something you had published
said I
Okay,
haven't
and
published.
Samuel, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Sorry, can you hear me
Yeah,
now?
I can hear you now. I haven't published. I wrote it,
Okay.
but I think that this will make me
Was it
publish.
about the Naira design policy?
Yep, it was. So it's
Okay,
interesting. I think I
it's
would
nice
share
for
it
you
to
to
the
publish.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be nice. It would be nice for you to publish it. And please, when you do, let me know. I'm really
Sure.
interested in that. So, back to sorry. Back to. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can, but it's not on presenter mode.
Okay. Let me go back. Where were we? We were okay. We've done policy analysis. Okay. So basically, I think the last thing I was talking about was making a decision or conducting a good analysis. That does not guarantee that the solutions will be selected and implemented. Your own, like I said, Veronica wrote something now. It's left the government to say they want to pick it up or not. But your own as a policy analyst, as a policy expert, is to do your job and present your findings. So, what's the essence of policy analysis? Why is it important that we do policy analysis? Policy analysis is a multidisciplinary field. It involves different parts because it involves you get to that point where you see the steps to doing this. Involves a lot of research, involves a lot of data collection, involves communication, which is another field again, because policy analysis is basically like policy communication. It's not like me communicating, talking about these policies, what I've found out about it, and communicating it to the appropriate authorities to say, take this, I need to take this action on this. So it's a multidisciplinary field that involves assessing policies and their outcomes to determine the effectiveness. So with policy analysis, you'll be hearing a lot of assessing, examining, evaluating, scrutinizing, because those are the buzzwords, that the keywords you have here. I'm talking about effectiveness, informed decision making. So there's some certain buzzwords you hear often. I keep hearing as we take this class, because these are things that you need to keep. Those are keywords I think you will be looking at. So it involves assessing policies and the outcomes to determine the effectiveness, the efficiency, and overall impact. The goal is to answer critical questions about the success of government interventions. Please pay attention to some of these things and provide a panacea and insights for improvement. Panacea is basically solution. So with this now, you see why it is very important to always do policy analysis. With the essence of the role of experts, subject matter experts. We call it SMEs, not like your social media enterprise. It's subject matter experts. So SMEs also comes in here. Also come in here rather. There's a need, because you need to begin to you need to look at what, because government is there as an entity, right? Someone needs to be checking the government. We talk about transparency all the time. We talk about accountability. Who is also checking them? Who is ensuring? Who is assessing what they're doing to see that they're actually on the right track and what they're doing is actually having an impact? You could probably be rolling out policies and programs, and it's of no use to the people. And probably is not even answering anything. You think you're working. So this is where policy analysis come in handy. You need to use it to assess success of government intervention, the programs they create, and also provide solutions, or you provide insights, ideas on how to improve it. Method of policy analysis. It could be qualitative analysis, it could be quantitative analysis, it could be comparative analysis, it could be cost-effective analysis. With the qualitative analysis, it focuses on understanding the subjective area, experiences, and perception of people. So that's where you go about doing interviews, survey, case study. Talk about general design now. I'm in this class now, and probably I approach WiLG and say, I need to talk to your fellows, or I need them to answer certain questions about what they feel about this policy. So basically, it's like, I talked about data gathering earlier. Qualitative analysis is more like the data gathering stage where you collect information that would your inform the document or the brief or whatever it is you're producing at the end, which is really the end result of policy analysis. And this piece is very crucial because one of the challenges we realize we have when they tell you policies are not working, you're not seeing the impact, is because we do not necessarily prioritize evidence-based policies. We just know that we create policies. And let me bring something to you today. There are two things about evidence-based policies, and there are two aspects of policies I think you should know. There's the evidence-based policy and policy-based evidence. I know you're wondering what she's saying at this point. Yes, evidence-based, and this data part that's making me look and actually necessitates that we touch on this. Evidence-based in the sense that at the beginning of your process, you're taking into cognizance the essence and the essence and the usefulness, so to say, of data. Knowing that data is what will inform what you're doing. You're collecting data, you're getting salient information. Not like you just go and say something, something that you're not sure of. You just make absolute statements about things and you exaggerate things without concrete evidence of how you came about that. So that's evidence-based policy. It means even as you're doing it, you're asking, it's more like it's reflecting on the needs of the people, is reflecting their challenges, reflecting maybe their desires, or is reflecting their vision, or is reflecting their needs. Then there's policy-based evidence. Policy-based evidence is once you've created a policy, then you're not going back. You've done your part. You've done everything you need to do. You didn't go through the proper policy cycle of the agenda setting, your research and all. At that point, you didn't do all the stakeholder engagements. Then you're now picking up the evidence of how your policy is working. So it's which is contradictory and might not necessarily give you the results you want. So this stage is actually very, very crucial. Then quantitative analysis involves use of statistical techniques to measure the impacts of policies on various. This is also where data also come in. This is also another form of data too. You're using data on maybe indicators, health outcome, economic indicators to say, so and so, yeah, you get inflation, what at this rate, then you come down to this year, this is the rate of inflation today. So those metrics you see, that's where sometimes you look at some documents, you see some graphs. I don't want to go that deep, so I didn't some of these things here because it might, for people that actually just getting introduced to this, it might be too technical for you. But I know that as you advance, the people that have interest in this area, you get to see it. That's why you see graphs showing projections of how maybe economic situations or GDP and all those things, or inflation, it could be unemployment, what it was this year. So you take all those things, or let's say looking at health now, probably there was a program that was rolled out on health. You look at 2020, this was the effect. As at 2021, 2022. So those data will also inform part of your analysis. Again, when you're analyzing, let's say, like a health policy to see how it has performed over the years. Then comparative analysis, you compare the outcome of a policy in different contexts or region. So all these things are all these methods are entailed in how you do a proper and holistic policy analysis, or using a proper and holistic policy analysis approach. So you look at, let's say in Nigeria, let's say during COVID, we wanted to look at how I know one of the countries, New Zealand was one of the countries that actually better handled their COVID situation. And I couldn't remember I forgot her name. Veronica, can you remind me? The ex-female president of Jacinta. Thank you. Yeah, Jacinta was actually, I think she was one of the presidents, that better managed, handled COVID across the world. And I think she was even recognized for it with the approach and how she was able to successfully handle that. So you could imagine where maybe we're trying to look at, okay, we have a policy here. What was the policy they adopted there? Well, no, that's why at times you hear people talk about best global practices. Best global practices is basically about juxtaposing or looking at bringing side to side. How is something working here? How is this here working here? Under what circumstance? How did they use it? How can we use it here? Okay, I think I'll use something you can relate to it. Period poverty. Period poverty now in Africa, we have about 4 to 5 states. I'm working on something currently on period poverty, and from the research I've been doing, I see that countries, for sure, Kenya was the first country in Africa that started the tax cuts on period products. And also we have Botswana, South Africa, Uganda, is it Rwanda? We have about five countries currently in Africa that actually taking initiative on managing menstrual on menstrual hygiene management as relates to sanitary wares, and how you can subsidize it so that girls in low income countries can easily access it, especially knowing that it affects their education. And we're also working towards increasing number of out of school girls that are out of school. And it's going to be counterproductive to say, on one hand, there's a policy we're pursuing to see how so that girls get back to school, and on the other hand, there's another issue that's taking them out of school. So it means that is going to be taking us back. So that's also another policy. And sure, some of these countries have even passed it into law already. Although there are different methods, some are using tax cuts, some are even providing, some are actually partnering with other probably donors, international donors, to provide the sanitary wares. Some countries are adopting tax cuts, things like that. Just look around to see how it's working in another region. Cost effective analysis. This approach involves comparing the cost of achieving a particular outcome through policy options, helping policymaker, allocate resources. So you also need to look at what's the cost of achieving something, or you get probably there's a targeted amount at achieving, maybe let's say health insurance now. So we have to look at how do we manage this health insurance policy? How do we, in terms of the cost, and how can we better manage costs so that it's effective and it can actually meet the needs of why it's been created. Next, assessing policy effectiveness. Effectiveness can be assessed in various dimensions, various ways. If you look at the social impact, social impacts involve how a policy evaluates how a policy addresses social issues like poverty, inequality, access to education and healthcare. In fact, I just talked about pure poverty and how it's affecting, it's making our girls lag behind their male counterparts, how it's making them stay out of school, or how they cannot go to school, and also exposing them to urinary tract diseases, which is also another health concern again. And in the future, this could lead to infertility for the girls. So this is like a broad issue. Just imagine that is just a single issue about sanitary wear, and see how it's linked to different parts. It's also linked to, of course, poverty, because so many people can imagine inflation in Nigeria now. And over the year, I saw a data that the price of sanitary wear in Nigeria has increased over 100 and something percent in the last 15 years. It keeps increasing. So a lot of people can't even afford it. Imagine now we're in a recession. We're experiencing inflation. Do you get price of commodities are just over the roof, and every day there's more like an hike. To even make it worse, there's some new policy. This is what I was talking about, policies. There's a new policy on already. There's something on hello.
Scrolling down.
Hello. Hello. Can that person mute themselves, please? If they're not speaking, please, so they don't distract us. Thank you. Thank you. So, okay, yes, talking about poverty now. Tariff has just been increased as electricity tariff. And of course, they, as much as they're trying to say, it's created in different bands and all, so people are not affected. But the thing is, the major people that get 24 or 20 hours of life daily are probably majorly big companies. I'm sure they're big companies or probably manufacturing factories that get this. It means that their cost of production will increase. And there's a ripple effect to some of these things. It means every other thing, once cost of production is affected, once there's something affected in factors of production, which costs part of it, it's definitely going to have an impact on the commodities. I could remember during it, Salah was a couple of days ago, wanted to get ice because we didn't get enough. They had to get ice, and I asked them to go get it, and they came back telling me the person said they added 15 naira on each one. Why? Because of tariff. And of course, where government is thinking, it does not affect, when you talk, people tell you it does not affect you. You're not a band. I don't have to be in any band to know that this would have a far-reaching impact on everyone. Because the moment you do that, it means cost of production will increase. And the way business people make their money is just to also increase the price of their commodity. I'm just talking about just ice blocks. That's it. I'm not even talking about other things in the market. So imagine people producing sanitary pads now. Let's even say they're producing in here, for instance. They'll probably have no choice than to also increase it. So it means people can't even afford it because already there are policies, they're already overlapping policies already, they're affecting the people. Talking about the subsidy, the Naira subsidy, the FX subsidy removal, and also the fuel subsidy removal. So you see how these things are interwoven, they're intertwined, and how it affects us. So going to economic impacts, assessing the policy's effect on economic indicators like employment rates, GDP, or inflation. We just talked about inflation right now. How some of these policies you get affect us in terms of policies will affect you in terms of inflation, even your GDP growth. Some policies can hinder your GDP growth. Imagine that time, I don't know why that Naira design, particularly, I don't even know. I hated that policy in my life. Anytime because it's what I think one of the worst policies we've ever had. So when you're looking to make an example, it's just one of the easiest examples to even make. It just comes easily to your head. So imagine that at that time, imagine people cannot do. I know people that could not go to the market. They cannot do businesses. They cannot go. So imagine what would have generated at that time and GDP growth, maybe what people would have, economic activities that were halted at that time, and things that would have contributed to our GDP growth in terms of maybe production, in terms of revenue generation, and or maybe income flow. But here we are. Look at what happened. Look at how it all played out. Environmental impact, examining the policy's consequences on environmental factors like pollution level, resource conservation, climate change, mitigation. I talked about styrofoam earlier and how Lagos State's government banned styrofoam because it doesn't decompose easily, and it also it predisposes us to environmental hazards, and these are things that sort of clogs our waterways and all. So it's not just climate friendly and it's not eco friendly. So we had to place a ban on it. Policy recommendations, guiding informed and evidence-based decision making. Based on the analysis, policymakers create recommendation for policy improvements or adjustments. Not said it earlier, so looking at improvements, assessing, examining, and the likes of such words. And these recommendations are grounded in empirical evidence and aim to enhance the policies overall. No, that's practical evidence. That's what I mean by empirical evidence. So like I mentioned, look at the practical evidence you see, and the idea is just to enhance or advance the impact of policy, general impact of policies are created. So case study, healthcare reform policy. Let's say consider a healthcare reform policy aimed at expanding access to affordable healthcare. Through policy analysis, it's possible to assess the impact on metrics like the percentage of insured individuals, healthcare costs, and health outcomes. This analysis may reveal areas for improvement, such as addressing gaps in coverage or streamlining administrative process. Yes, this actually hits home because Veronica and I were colleagues, and we worked under the Kaduna State government. That's the last administration. I could remember I worked with the health insurance program agency, and we're handling the states. No, we have the NHIS. Excuse me. We have the National Health Insurance Policy. So Kaduna State decided to create the Kaduna State contributory health management scheme, more like a health insurance where government contributes certain parts. Then the government also, the people, depending on maybe your employer or your vulnerable, contribute certain parts. So it's like a contributory scheme whereby then you can also afford insurance at an affordable rate. So the idea is to the basic idea is to provide accessible, affordable, and what's the last A again? Affordable, accessible, and equitable, yes, healthcare. So it means that when you go to hospital, nobody is treating someone because they don't have money to be VVIP, then they can't access. It means everybody is treated equally. Once you go there, you'll be given the attention you needed. That was the idea of that policy. So imagine that kind of policy, of course, putting in context here, and the idea, of course, to expand access to affordable healthcare, basically. And also in terms of proximity, because I remember the idea was they're going to be posted to hospitals that were at close proximity. So it means if you have a headache today, if you fall ill today, and at least even if you don't have transport or you can't have Panadol, your neighbors can easily even carry it to the hospital around, and you can easily access care at the hospital. So, when you want to look at that policy now, you have to ask, if I want to go back now to say, okay, I want to even look at this policy, how has it fared in the last couple of years? Now there's a new sheriff in town. Let's keep talking about the governor. Okay, I want to look at how has it fared from the time where the last governor left, and how is it faring now? At least the new governor now is almost a year in office. Looking at how has it even fared in this new regime. So it means I'm going to be looking at what are the metrics, like how many more people now have actually joined the insurance net, as at when, yes, compared to when the last governor left office. What is the cost? Is it still the same? I know it was 10,000. It was 10,000. Is it 500 and 500 plus? I can't remember exactly the exact amount for individual. And it was 56,000 plus for a family of four, father, mother, and 6 and 4 kids. So there also was the outcome with that, because I remember then Kaduna they were one of the states that had high maternal mortality rate, because of course some people just preferred to go to use the traditional method. Some people prefer to give birth, get better attendance to just come to the house, some people don't even go to the hospital, they prefer to use their herbs. So it means as part of what we're doing then was also educating them. We're doing a lot of a lot of advocacy. We're doing a lot of stakeholder engagement, especially using the human-centered design approach, which is also a concept under policy making, because you also need to look at the behavior of people when you're creating policy. You can create a policy and nobody will use it, or you can create a program or intervention, nobody will use it. So it's also very good in public, generally with policy making, to look at the social behavior of people. Sure, there's a new concept of it to get. There's a new concept. I won't say it's a new concept. There's a concept now, even in economics. There's economic social behavior in economics, and social behavior even in public policy, to look at when you're analyzing or creating policy or analyzing policy. You have to use a human-centered approach lens to look at how you get to look at the social behavior of people and how they react, or how they, basically generally looking at maybe their culture and all those things and how they behave. So to inform some of the things. That's why I said these things come. You have to always ensure that you are working towards an evidence-based policy, or whatever it is, evidence-based, just to inform or better deliver deliver a better impact to the people. So we looked at that earlier. We looked at the policy cycle. So this is the policy wheel. It's also like a policy cycle. But this is for policy analysis. You look at the fact that you identify the problem, then you analyze it. After analyze it, you develop the policy document. You get strategy or the policy paper or policy document. Then you present it so that it could be enacted again. Once it's being reenacted, then it goes back into implementation again. Then evaluation. You get after that implementation, then if you educate your stakeholders and get on this process and all, then the evaluation process continues again. So if you see it's a continuum, it's something that you have to keep doing. That's why it is cycle. Else, if it was just something that would not need to, that would not need a constant, there's not a continuum or a constant process. You probably have just been linear, where you start at point A and maybe at point D it ends there, and that's the end of it. We move on to another thing. But this has to keep going. That's why it's in a circle or in a wheel. Then this brings us to policy brief. And I mentioned after you do everything, then you need to present your findings. You need to collate your findings and present it. Let it be in then you need a paper or a document. So a policy brief is a summary, see, not something that's book or something very brief that, like I know I mentioned earlier at the beginning, you don't want to give something that's bulky, something that's full of, something that cannot be easily accessible, something that's not friendly to read. No, make sure it's concise, very, it's succinct, not something that is just elaborate and people they're not even interested in it. So you see some policy people, but this might just be maybe 2 or 3 pages, and that is it. It's not like you're writing a book or anything. So policy brief is a concise summary of a particular issue, the policy option to address, and some recommendation. I talked about policy performance earlier and evaluation, and also you present your recommendation on the best option to go about it. It's usually targeted at government policy makers, or people that are interested in formulating and influencing policies. And it can also be in different formats. I talked about policy paper, policy brief, depending on how you want to do it. It should also highlight areas of policy, provide recommendations for change, and what's the reason behind them, the reason why you're doing that. Talk about the context of the problem statement, and provide the key information to formulate maybe policy correctly, or guide them on how to do it better. Yeah, that's it. Then template of a policy paper. A policy brief typically includes the following elements: the title, clearly states the topic of the brief. I talked about the topic we looked at earlier on health insurance. So maybe you want to analyze the impact of health insurance in maybe in mitigating maternal mortality. How has the affected maternal mortality? Summarize the findings and recommendation. That's the executive summary. So summarize everything your findings, then the recommendation you have. That's it. So that anybody that reads it, the first thing they see is your summary. If your summary is not appealing, trust me, they might not be interested. So the moment they pick it up and the first thing they read is your summary, fine, that catches their attention, and they want to go on to say, yes, I'm interested in this. The introduction, then you go into the proper body of your paper. Provide a background information about what you're talking about. And you also have, like, what's the purpose of this brief? Why are you writing the paper? Then thank you. I talk about problem statement. You define your problem statement. What are the issues that your paper wants to address? Then you go on to, then you delve into the evidence part. where you analyze. That's where the proper breakdown of your analysis. You present your data, your evidence, the argument to support this problem that gets this problem is existing, is a big problem. This is the enormity of the problem. This is how no, this is how no, this is how problematic it is, or this is how deep it is. This is where analysis comes in. Then your policy recommendations, you now provide what are the specific actions or the strategies you think we can use to address this problem based on your own expertise. And like I said, this is where you can also use a comparative analysis, looking at best global practices, what have they done somewhere else, or how is some other people handling it, and how we can do it better. Then you summarize everything, summarize your conclusion, your key points, then the importance of those your recommendation and why it needs to be adopted. If you want to achieve better results, if you want to better improve the policies. Then references, of course, you cite all the resources you get your information from in your brief. Yeah, so basically that's what it entails. So step in writing a policy brief. Define your problem. We mentioned this earlier, your problem statement, identify the audience, who are the stakeholders, is it for government, is it about people, is it about which area, just identify who is it targeted at. Then research and gather information, you analyze the information, you develop the policy. This is just a brief of what I mentioned earlier. Next, almost done. Have just 3 minutes. Oh, my time is up, right, Veronica?
Yeah.
I started
I mean,
at
you can just
4:20.
finish.
Okay, I still have 10 minutes more, right?
You can just
started at
continue.
4:20.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I still have 10 minutes. Thank you. So, okay, yeah, I get it. We're supposed to have 4:10. So you started at 4:10. Okay, yeah, it's fine. Structure and format the policy brief. You begin with, basically, this is the 6 steps. After you've done all that, this is how you put it together. Make sure that your title is compelling and it captures the essence of that brief. Like I said, the executive summary should be very concise and lies your main findings and recommendations. You organize it, logically in the way that using your heading, subheading, make it look nice and presentable. Structure it well, program statement, your program statement, your policy recommendations, step by step in that manner. Use clear and concise language, avoid jargons, big technical words and terms that people might not even understand. People should not want to read your brief and they're going to get dictionaries on the time for every word they come across. Support your point to evidence. We talked about the evidence-based policy, evidence-based, and most things policy-led. Make sure that you provide lots of evidence, lots of data, because else someone could say, no, you just fabricated this, or this is your own opinion. Then lastly, you conclude with a summary of the points and your call to action, what you want government to do. So this is like sample of, like I said, it's always very brief. So this document now, the one to your left where you see they say improving outcomes for displaced population in Mexico. It's just like this thing is just 2 pages. You see the executive summary. So this executive summary alone now already shows you this is exactly a summary of everything that's contained in that document. This document now is just a 2-page document, the way you're saying it. Very brief. The next one, that talks about the National Infrastructure Assessment, the transformative opportunity for UK infrastructure. You see the key findings, you see policy implication. This is just a 3-page, very brief. So tips for effective policy writing. I think we'll go over this again. Keep it brief, concise. Keep it very, very, very short and presentable. You aim for brevity without sacrificing clarity. Ensure that you have on the point that it's actually necessary. Do you get? And you also ensure that it's very clear enough and people can easily understand it and read and digest it. Use plain language as accessible to a non-specialist audience. I talked about earlier. You don't use words that are, just don't use those big words or big grammars that might just throw people off. Provide your context and background information to help the reader understand the issue. Use video. I talked about data. Use graph. I talked about charts earlier. just to illustrate your key points, make sure the recommendations are actionable, they are evidence-based, and they're specific. Review and revise your brief carefully to ensure it's accurate, it's persuasive. Anybody that reads it, it's so compelling that they just want to do something like, yes, this this paper, addresses the issue, and we need to take, we need to take action. And it's just, it's very clear and for anybody to read and understand. You can also share with your friends or your peers or they're also experts in the field to get your feedback on the quality of your work you did. So in conclusion, writing a policy brief requires careful planning, research, analysis, and good writing skills, because basically it's all about writing. So you also have to have a good research skills, and research is also another field on its own. These are areas where you could pick interest. In short, the organizations where they need researchers to do some of this background work for them, and they just put everything together, research and analysis. Then following the steps outlined in this manual, if you're talking about the steps previously, applying the tips for effective policy writing can help you create a compelling and influential document that can inform decision making and contribute to positive change. So, very you mentioned earlier, maybe you feel there's something you want to address and you want them to take action, if you can create a very compelling and powerful document and present it to, probably some of them might not be responsive, but you might probably have lawmakers that they're serious minded and proactive, and they want to take action on it. Then policy analysis is a critical tool in policy making processes. Requires a rigorous evaluation of impacts and effectiveness of government policies. And policymakers can help policymakers make informed decisions, improve existing policies, and develop new approaches that better serves the interests of the public. Thank you very much. And that's it. Please, if you have questions, let me know and let's address it. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Bushrah. I mean, you had gone through an elaborate explanation of, how to get into policy analysis and actually how to go into policy writing. Thank you very much for that. And I mean, I had written my closing words and you actually just took the words out of my mouth. I was going to say that the reason why we're taking this class is so that we can have more women engage in the policy discourse, right? So adding your voice, writing, I mean, Medium, LinkedIn gives us that platform to be able to write, to share our views, to contribute. So I mean, I was thinking, what issues are affecting women and men? You analyze what issues are affecting women and men in the society, what's affecting youth, what's affecting I mean, some of the issues I had highlighted were the Student Loan Act that was passed. How is it going to be implemented? You can put your discourse to it. Period poverty, as Bushrah has stated earlier. Climate change policy, just like the one you had mentioned too from Lagos State. The National Assembly is currently doing a constitutional reform. Are you following the process? Are you lending your voice? I know that the National Assembly recently said that they want to there's a push for moving from the parliamentary system to from the presidential system to the parliamentary system.
Yes.
So having a discourse, is that going to be really good for Nigeria? How is the switch going to affect Nigeria? So just things like that. The electricity tariff, how is it going to work? Is it going to be good for the society or is it going to be bad? I also wanted to mention that policy analysis doesn't necessarily have to be about bad policies. You can also write about good policies that the government has passed, the effect it has had, showcase and highlight that. So you're also looking for, you can also see an absence of a policy, right? So if there's also an absence of a policy, you can write so that there can be a policy passed, right? So just engaging, putting your voice into so many things is really, really important as young women, because you never know how far your writing will go. You never know who is going to read your writing. I mean, since we started this program and we have been highlighting and sharing our slides and our invites and everything, we've had a lot of people join into the program, even come and support the program, and they're not part of the mentees. But I've also connected with a few people who have said, oh, I would like to join you to do something in the future, because we did this. So most times you never know. I've written so many times that people will just reach out to my DMs because of what I've written. So as young ladies, I think that we need to put our voice more to the discourse, and share our opinion and our views. You never know how far that can take you. And like Bushrah said, there are some jobs that are just researchers and policy analysts. So you can just become a policy analyst. So it's even a career path that you can choose to go through. There are great organizations like SBM Intelligence. There is Nexim. Next year,
next year,
next year,
Nigeria.
next year.
There's Agora policy.
Yes, they have a good. They publish. I follow their newsletter.
Plaque too. Plaque does that.
So they are organizations that you can follow their newsletters, and you can see what they write about things that are happening in Nigeria. Things that happen.
There are podcasts I listen to.
There are even podcasts.
I can share. I'll collate them. These podcasts, they help a lot. I have them. I follow them. It's just your data. You don't need to subscribe to anything. You just go to download your Google podcasts and listen to them. A lot of. I have the one that's focused only on women policies, general economic policies. So I will just share the link to those ones.
So
Monica will send it to
like every Friday.
Sometimes you can just be in your house. You're not doing anything much. You can just have it playing in the background and you're listening. Yes.
You're right.
Yes.
And like Bushrah said, you can write in series. So you can write your thoughts. What are your thoughts about these policies? You write series 1, series 2, you do a brief analysis. We are here for you. If you want to send in us to review it, that's really cool. Yeah. I'm open. I'm sure Bushrah is also open.
Yeah, I'm available.
And you're right. You never know where it will take you. Even the National Assembly, they are looking for people who would analyze things. So it's once you start writing,
Veronica, they could also collaborate. You don't have to be only. You can decide to collaborate.
Yes, collaborate.
I don't want to do
have
it
your
alone.
projects. Yeah, you have your projects coming up. Whichever what you want to do with your project. If you want to write a policy brief, that's really going to be good. If you want to host a session, that's also going to be great. And like Bushrah said, collaborate. That's why we created a network of women. So you guys don't have to do it. Work alone, and you work it together. Bushrah, if me and you keep on talking, we'll keep going back and forth with so many ideas in our head.
I swear.
We look forward to tomorrow's session where you're going to be teaching us project management, because we're going to be, our mentees are going to be launching their projects. So that will be a great one for them to learn how to start, ideate, and to think about what their project is. But for Bushrah, for them, we're trying to see, even if it's just article writing, even if it's a poem, a small post, we're trying to see how they can collaborate together as well as start something from the beginning and finish with it. So thank you very much, Bushrah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. Like always, just share with you guys.
Thank you.
It's been a great class.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and please, I also want those that are here, encourage tomorrow's project management. And I know that you have a project coming up. So that I believe tomorrow's class will be very crucial to everybody, because there are some, I don't want to call it expo, there are just some there are just some secrets that might just be revealed to you and makes your work easier, and imagine if you're not here and you're missing out on that. So please specifically tell them that I said please they should make themselves available tomorrow, because it will really, really help them as they're going into this project phase.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for having me. I'm always happy to be here. I'm always happy to share from the little knowledge I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And have a good evening.
Bye.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.